Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
OK/X/. I have a fairly mysterious and creepy story to tell you. I live in Serbia in a town called Ruma. The events I will tell you about happened in 1999, toward the end of March if I remember correctly. The bombing had started recently. I am an electrician by trade, but at the time I was working as an assistant to the manager of a small cafe. Basically, I did a secretary's job, typing, arranging meetings, and bookkeeping as well. What I was doing doesn't matter in any case. One night, a very old man, probably 80-something, came into the cafe as we were closing. This was the start of a very mysterious and frightening night. On the picture you can see an amusing pre-World War II postcard entitled "Ruma in the Future." As he came in, I noticed his clothes were very dirty, as if he had fallen into a ditch or something. He was wearing a brown suit, so the stains were a bit harder to spot. Clutching his chest, he said one word and collapsed onto the floor. "Outside." The boss quickly lifted him, sat him up on a chair, and went to get him a glass of water. I ran outside to see what had happened. There was absolutely nothing outside. This cafe was on the outskirts of town, so we didn't even have an asphalt road, just dirt. I couldn't hear or see anything. Just as I turned to go back inside, I noticed that the door handle was bloody. In fact, there were very small bloodstains around the door, trailing in from the road, from the end that goes out of town. I briefly considered following the bloodstains, but decided staying and helping the old man was more important. I ran back into the cafe and saw the boss pouring the water down the man's throat. I checked for a pulse. It was there, but pretty faint. While doing this, I accidentally moved his left arm with which he was clutching his chest, and I had quite a bit to see. There was a huge horizontal gash on his chest, about 20 centimeters long, I'd say. It was bleeding profusely. I realized he could very well die if this was not resolved somehow. I ran to call an ambulance. I described our situation to the operator, and she said the ambulance would be there in 5 minutes. When I came back, the boss had already removed the man's shirt and cleaned most of his wound with water. I searched the man's pockets. I figured perhaps the doctors would need his identification when he arrived. I found a small wallet made out of fake leather in his right shirt pocket. Inside, I found several interesting things, which I still have and which you can see on the picture here.
Note this thread only has saved thumbnails due to being archived improperly, so the full images are unavailable. So squint.
A member's card from the Serbian Union Association, issued to Peter N. Kristic. A pocket calendar from 1991. Some sort of small tag which reads, "Security May 1972. A special bus pass issued to Miladin Paljevic. The bus ticket had a picture, as you can see. The man who came into the cafe did slightly resemble the man in the photo, but the one in the photo looked much younger. As I was looking over the things from the wallet, I heard the ambulance outside. The boss ran out to talk to them and lead them inside, and I stayed. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. The man opened his eyes, grabbed his chest, and got up again like he wasn't injured at all, even though he was still bleeding. He turned to me and said, "The wallet, in my shirt. Keep it, hide it." His voice was very tired. It sounded like he had a severe cold and was a heavy smoker to boot. Just as he said the last word, he clutched his wound even harder and collapsed onto the floor, just as the boss entered the cafe with the paramedics. The wallet was already in my back pocket, so I didn't have to do anything special to hide it. The boss hadn't seen me taking it. I felt compelled to listen to what might possibly be this man's last wish, so I decided I will not show the wallet to anyone. Several minutes later, the man was pronounced dead. The paramedics had called the police. We were questioned about what happened by the police and were quickly cleared of most suspicions after they found no weapons anywhere in the cafe, and after they had seen the blood on the road outside. They took samples and did some more investigation work on the scene, which I didn't pay much attention to at the time. They didn't search us for some reason, so the wallet remained undiscovered. We were shooed off pretty soon. I didn't think much about the man and what had happened that night, although I did have an uneasy sleep. The cafe remained closed while the police were conducting their investigation. I had spent my newfound free time with friends and family, and generally having fun when we could, because of the power restrictions and air raids. No bombs had fallen on Ruma, thankfully. One day, while I was home alone, a man I didn't recognize knocked on my door. He was a bit older than me at the time. He introduced himself as a special police agent. He had a warrant for questioning, but only that. He didn't want to search my house, just ask several questions about that night. I agreed, wondering what harm it could do. I was a bit suspicious, however. He didn't ask anything special. When did the man come inside? Did he say anything? Did you find anything on him? Did he tell you his name? I kept the whole story about the wallet hidden, obviously. He thanked me for my time, saying that the man had some unusual wounds on other parts of his body and that he would be taken to Belgrade, the capital, for further study. He also told me that I could not speak to anyone about the case. You're probably wondering why I am speaking of it now. Well, the man who questioned me died in 2004. The case was closed in 2001, I believe, and I feel that this restriction isn't valid anymore. The whole thing being very hush-hush, it never got attention in the news. I tracked the obituaries in the newspaper for a couple of weeks after this, but I never saw a picture of the man who came into our cafe. The whole thing still feels very weird to me. I stopped working at the cafe in 2000, and I am now a self-employed electrician. These events had always bothered me, however, and I always wanted to share them with someone. The questions I ask you are what, who, how. Namely, what do you think is the significance of the wallet and the items inside, all of which I still have? Why was the whole case covered up? What happened to this man who came into our cafe? I'd like to hear your theories. Ask me anything about all this and I will answer the best I can.
OP, I am an Albanian. You made me tear up reading all of this and reminding me of our history back then. I hate it, I really do, and I would like to help. I'm pretty sure you're informed about UDBA, the secret police of Yugoslavia back then. My uncle was one of the top guys there. Yes, believe it or not, an Albanian was actually one of the UDBA highest. He even dinned with Tito every now and then, if that doesn't amuse you. If you want to work with me, then I'd require you to post every single detail of that wallet pictured for me to show it to my uncle. He's an old man now, and never talks about his job, only with my father. He once told me he's alive because he knows how to keep his mouth shut. You see, I really like to know more about this kind of stuff, because communist Yugoslavia interests me a lot, especially having a real close relative work for the government. I'm pretty sure we could solve this because that guy seems like he's related to UDB. Cheers, man.
Greetings, my friend. What happened between us during the 90s also makes me sad. And yes, I would like to work with you and try to solve this. All I know about UDBA is what every other regular person knows, so not a lot, basically. Here's some more detailed descriptions of the things I've found. The security pass has 2 holes on the back, and you can remove the little bit of cardboard from inside it. I've seen things like this before. Basically, you put a safety pin through the 2 holes in the back and wear it as a badge. The union membership card has its own plastic holder thing, with an ad for the BIP brewery on the back. The card says, Sindikat Komunalne Privred, Korestik N Pitar, 302815030128. On the back, it basically describes what privileges you get from being a member. The paper in the other side of the holder just has phone numbers for the various sectors of the unions. The calendar is from a Belgrade company, Centro Textil. It has a picture of 2 women in the front. On the back, as you can see, it has the telex and phone number and address. The bus pass has lots of details. I'll post some photos of it in a moment. OP here, this is the wallet. As I said, fake leather, not very interesting. Inside of the wallet. On the left, it has a clear plastic thing for photos or something. On the right, it has a little pouch for change. The letters say Srembanka. It is a bank, but I do not know from which city. Possibly Sremska Mitrovica. Front of the bus pass. Back of the bus pass.
Hey, Op. I'm the Albanian guy. Just got back from a talk with my uncle. Yes, the guy we are talking about is in fact Croatian. You actually kept a wallet of a Croatian UDBA spy for all these years. He used the syndicate membership to go undercover. Basically, he's not that much of a higher-up person. Just one of the inside spies that UDBA wanted to take down. I'm sorry to disappoint you that you did save and kept this man's promise, although his only purpose was to spy and hurt your nation. That name is not his real name. It's actually one of his fake IDs. That bus ticket is something the UDBA elitists owned. They would get free transport permanently anytime they want. I hope this was informative. I'm glad I could help. Though I'm not entirely sure and don't want to be a conspiracy guy. But I did notice I got his attention when I mentioned Ruma and the year that happened. As I said, he literally never talks about stuff like this because he's so strict. It's like UDBA still secretly owns basements and has meetings.
Hello/X/ I have a story you might like. Be me. Serbian doomer. Lives in a small rural village. I live in an adjacent house next to my family's house. I was scrolling on my phone when I heard a faint sound. I started to concentrate on it. It sounded like a child crying. Too spooky for me. Try to unfocus on the sound. The sound gets louder. I get up to investigate. Grab my grandpa's double-barrel shotgun. I thought it was just kids playing around and I just wanted to scare them. I get out and yell outside. The sound stopped. I get back inside and sound starts again. Get outside quietly. Sound comes from the roof. Anger turns into shock. The sound sounds like a child crying but distorted in a way I cannot describe. I walk slowly away from my house to see what's on my roof. It was a full moon and a clear night sky, so it was brightly lit. I see what we call in Serbia a Drekavac. My heart skipped a beat. I gasped and the thing looked at me. Eyes black, skin pale white. I took aim and shot, the bright flash blinding in the night. When my eyes adjusted to the night again, it was gone. I ran inside and barricaded myself, sobbing and praying. Hear my family run inside, asking what the hell I was shooting at, saying that I saw a Drekavac. Family looks at each other worried. The next day, the priest came to my house, cleansed my house. A few months later, relatively quiet. My uncle sleeps in the same house with me. Since that night, I always sleep armed.
If OP is still here. Greetings from a Serb who lives in the land of kangaroos. Forgive me that I don't write in Serbian much anymore, so I'm not as good as I used to be. Also have an abundance of creepy Serbian folklore stories if anyone is still lurking. This story has made the rounds a few times throughout the family, so I'm relaying it with as much detail as I was given. My great-grandfather was supposedly able to speak with snakes. Discovered he had this talent when he was bitten by a venomous snake that he wasn't able to identify. Supposedly called the snake verbally, and it came to him. Then started regularly doing the same for other community members who were in similar situations. Also snake-related but not necessarily paranormal. Every house in Southeast Europe was believed to have what is known as a house snake, that mostly was a good omen and would protect the house, children, livestock, etc. Its appearance, however, was meant to be an omen of death. When my mother was very young, she got really ill, and my grandmother freaked out when she saw a sleeping snake curled up on her pillow next to her head. A nosy neighbor assured her that it was fine and that it was just their house snake. My mother said that a few points during her fever-induced delirium, she remembers seeing a snake sleeping next to her. Neither of them disturbed it, and the snake did nothing but sleep until my mother improved. The day that she woke up feeling better, the snake was gone, and they never saw it again. Neat. The second story that I have is fairly long, so I'm searching for my copy pasta as I've posted it here once before, so bear with me for a few minutes. It involves gypsies and curses, so it's worth the wait, I promise. This is another recount told to me by my mother. At the age of 9, she fell inexplicably ill. A concerned neighbor who was visiting noticed that my mother's skin was shriveled and far too wrinkly for that of a 9-year-old, in addition to how pale, sweaty, and sickly she looked. She spoke to my grandmother about it, and because the neighbor was a superstitious old woman, as most people were in that time, she sent a gypsy, for lack of better term, that she knows to my mother's house. The gypsy woman arrived and assessed my mother's state of health. She then requested something that had been given to my mother as a gift recently, and my mother produced a golden heart-shaped locket and necklace given to her by her father. The gypsy puts necklace in a pot full of only water and does a weird chant over it. Water turns murky and thick within minutes, and the gypsy says that my mother's stepmother harbors some ill will against her, spits behind her whenever she leaves from visiting her father, and has in all likelihood commissioned another gypsy to curse her. Mother is a weird mix of skeptic yet slight believer, but my grandmother believed in all that weird gypsy shit and asked the gypsy to do what she could to help. The gypsy agrees and instructs my mother to be wearing clothes bought for her by her father, and the necklace, which I forgot to mention had a few deep scratches and gouges in it when she got it, when she returns in a few days' time. My aunt begins to fall ill also in the meantime, with similar symptoms to my mother's. The gypsy returned in a few days just as she promised to, and asked for 3 eggs to be purchased from the local markets. My grandmother mentioned that her sister had brought a fresh basket of eggs down from her farm for sale just a day prior, and the gypsy refused them, insisting on eggs from the market. So my grandmother heads down to the local market to buy the eggs. When she returns, the gypsy gathers the eggs, some ash from the stove, and puts them in a pot filled with water. Gypsy then proceeds to get naked and starts chanting and perspiring heavily. After about 40 minutes of this, she sends my mother outside of the house for about 20 minutes, while my curious mother stands outside and peeks through the window to watch what the gypsy is doing. She said that the gypsy sang the whole time in a language she couldn't understand. Gypsy calls mother back into the house, gets a knife, gives it to my mother, and instructs her to pierce all 3 eggs, one by one. The first and second egg were completely empty, nothing inside the shells at all, and when my mother broke the 3rd egg with the knife, in between the shell and the egg membrane, there were 2 twigs, one longer than the other, bound together with a strand of hair. The gypsy explained that the twigs signified my mother and aunt, and that was why my aunt was also getting as sick as my mother was. The gypsy leaves after this, and my mother's health starts improving over the week. Not completely better, but her skin was returning to normal, and she was starting to look and feel much less sickly. The gypsy returns a week later, tells how she thinks she hasn't completely reversed the curse, and that whoever had cursed my mother was pissed at her doing so, and has also cursed her in penance for trying to help my mother out. The gypsy asked for a photograph of my mother and aunt, and the equivalent of $50. She had done everything so far without any payment other than my grandmother feeding her, etc. when she was there, which was customary in Europe, so that she can take them to a local temple and have a number of people pray over them. The $50 was supposed to buy the photographs about a week's time at the temple. My mother calls bullshit on the gypsy, but my grandmother gives the gypsy the photographs and money and sends her on her way. During the following week, my mother and aunt recovered completely in health. Gypsy returns a fortnight later with a strange man, asks to come in for a coffee, and proceeds to tell my mother and grandmother how during the week that she left their photographs in the temple, her own mother fell really ill and ended up in the hospital. Gypsy visited her gypsy mother in hospital, where her gypsy mother asked her to gather some changes of clothes, etc. from her home and bring them back to the hospital for her. Gypsy goes to her mother's house and collects a few things, opens the bedside table to get a hairbrush or something, and happens upon a photograph of my mother and aunt with an older man, who turned out to be their father. The gypsy didn't know my mother, grandmother, or grandfather before this incident, nor did her gypsy mother. Gypsy takes photo back to the hospital and asks her gypsy mother what the fuck is going on. Gypsy's mother explains that a woman came to her and paid her a shitload of money to place a love spell on her husband and a curse on his 2 daughters. She supposedly agreed because she needed the money, etc. The gypsy's mother died in hospital the following day. Apparently, back then it was said you could tell when a gypsy had legitimate abilities by their teeth. This gypsy had 2 upper rows of teeth and 2 single teeth on her lower jaw. Her mother had 2 upper rows of teeth and none on her lower jaw.
Some weird and paranormal stories from my mom. Mind you, she was born in 1982 in what was then Yugoslavia, now Serbia. She had a tough life and all, from being homeless at 19 until 21 to being in an abusive marriage for 17 years. Here is one of her shorter stories through life, so let me know if you want more. I will green text it from her perspective. Be me. Late teen. School trip, so we get on a bus and go to the capital. Fun times.x. A couple days pass. One night we are just drinking on a beach and relaxing. Near the beach is a forest. Gypsy woman comes out of the damn forest. What the fuck. JPEG. Kinda late for her to be wandering, but whatever. She says that she can see into the future. All the guys laugh at her, asking her to predict when they will shit next and so on, etc. She doesn't care what they are saying, keeps focusing on me and tries to approach me. My friend, let's call her Sarah, approaches her. Gypsy lady gives in and tells her how she will marry a man in a white outfit. Finally approaches me. Pretty much begs me to read me my future. Sure, why not? Tells me how dark times are coming and I will have to stay strong for my 2 boys. I'm sorry, what? Leaves. She never saw her again, but she did tell me that she had told her all this before she became homeless. Mind you, a lot of these stories are recorded from years ago when she told me, but this one is a memory that I don't think I recorded. But if this thread takes off, I can listen to the recordings and transcribe more of them. This one is from my recollection of what she told me, and I don't know if this one is in one of those recordings. All the recordings are divided into 3 parts of 30 minutes up to over an hour of audio. But to add to this one, yes, there was more she said, since I remember her being shocked and almost crying. I will try and listen to the recordings, but in the meantime, I will post some more stories from her. Quick story, not in green text, since I am at work and want to keep the thread updated and bump it. When she moved to Bosnia to live with my father, they were not married then, but were close. She was about 20 at this point, and she was either in Bosnia or Serbia when this happened. Sorry for the bad memory. These events were told to me over 3 years ago. But she had just finished visiting a church, so she waited for the bus, and there sat an old man with a cane and a small hat. They sat in silence. My mom never even said anything to him, and he told her, "Don't marry him, my child. You will only suffer and be left in pain if you do." My mom didn't understand it and was confused. But she didn't get much information out of him, since after he said that the bus came, and oddly enough, she never saw him again. Another quick one to throw out there. She always had a strange connection with religion and death. One story that always stood out is about her grandmother's grave. Because the old village she lived in was raided and attacked during the war, they had to move. And after it was all said and done, years and years passed. Those who moved either went to a neighboring country or somewhere like Germany or Austria, which meant that the next generation after the passing of the old one never took care of that village, and nature, as it does, took it back. Everything was either destroyed from the bombs or overgrown. The village was on a hill, and even further up the hill, like a 15-minute walk, was a graveyard where many of my mother's family were buried. And the strange thing about it is how creepy it is now. All overgrown, and being on top of a hill adds to it. But she always told me how any time she visited that graveyard to see her grandma, she always felt at peace. Ever since my mom was a kid, Grandma was there for her and always protected her and took care of her as much as she could. Now take all of this that I said and understand that it was a bit shocking for me to hear that at least once a year, whenever she could, she would go and visit Grandma's grave. But every time some animal or insect would be on that one grave, be it a cat, butterfly, or even a dog, in an abandoned graveyard on a freaking hill on that day. Let me know if you want more, since these are only short stories. From what I have heard of the recording, there are things like her grandmother coming to her in a dream, and even predicting my uncle's death. Some other fortune-telling stuff and more, so let me know if /x/ is interested. pulling one more from my memory, so it's going to be a bit iffy, but stay with me. Regarding the village, there aren't too many. I remember her telling me about the Drekavac, or the rake for the Americans. The thing is, though, she told me they had one in the village, and it would make a loud noise before a catastrophe. Someone's chicken would be eaten the next day, or someone would die, etc. But some crazy hillbilly was so mad he went out and killed it. Thing is, though, the last time that thing had made its noise heard soon after it was killed or just went away is when their village got invaded. Honestly, at this point in my life, I believe she has a special connection with God. I know that sounds corny in a way and is a bit out there to even say, but the stories of her and God giving her signs, or heck, even angels, have kind of left me baffled.
Sorry for the shitty picture, but it's fitting enough and beats drawing the same thing. An hour ago, I was having a late dinner with my girlfriend on my balcony when she noticed something in the sky and pointed me to it. What I saw was 3 faint white lights flying in formation at consistent speed. I'm very nearsighted, so I had to squint real hard. I couldn't make out any details. The formation appeared to change to a line. The thing flew over the roof. I ran to my other balcony, roof terrace or whatever. Kind of hard to explain the layout of my apartment building and irrelevant. But I couldn't see it anymore. I wouldn't say it disappeared. Perhaps it flew over the part of the sky obscured by my building. My girlfriend, on the other hand, is far-sighted. She is certain that the lights were connected. Essentially, that it was a triangle shape. She describes it more as a moth shape, that is, slightly rounded. What I saw as a change in formation, she describes as the object turning slightly. I figured these were 3 white birds illuminated by the light of the city. I thought I even saw the flapping of wings, but this could be attributed to me squinting. She, on the other hand, insists that these were not birds and that the lights were consistent, whereas they appeared to change intensity, thus appearing like the flapping of wings. But once again, I was squinting and trying to make sense of the blur. Not making any of this up, cross my heart and hope to die. Only posting on /x/ because where else am I supposed to post this? I mean, it sounds like a stereotypical X-Files Black Triangle sighting, but we didn't see the big central light in the middle. We live in Belgrade, Serbia, and it's 1:35 a.m. here now. This was around an hour ago, perhaps slightly less. I kept staring at the sky for the past hour, hoping for the thing to reappear. I wish I had my glasses with me, racking my brain trying to explain what that was. Any ideas?
I'm not sure it helps, but I saw something similar while camping in Oregon. This was years ago, late 90s. We saw 3 lights flying, then realized it was a triangle-shaped craft or something. It hovered for a solid minute or so, then started accelerating. Appeared to be slowly at first, but increasing rapidly, and within seconds it blinked out of sight. I mean, that's what it appeared like, but it can be difficult to tell WTF is going on. I've told a few people but have never made a big deal out of it. I'd always assumed it was either some sort of secret government aircraft, or that I'm retarded. I suppose that's equally likely. I've read about other triangle-shaped craft sightings since then, but that's my only even remotely /x/ experience.
This thing didn't hover or blink out. It flew relatively quickly, no quicker than 3 big birds would, perhaps 200 meters away. GF said that the thing was doing a half-barrel roll. I really can't remember the word for it right now. What I mean to say is that it started a barrel roll in one direction, but then barrel rolled into the other. Through my eyes, it was all consistent with bird flight, but she swears that this was a single object illuminated on 3 sides. I know she's not messing with me because she suggested this first while we were still looking at it, before I even implied that it was 3 separate objects. Honestly, I always thought black triangle sightings are utter bullshit. Strange moving lights in the sky? Sure. Black triangle stories though, man. It always rang to me as either clickbait bullshit and /x/ role-playing. The most striking thing about this is how casually it flew. I didn't see the actual black shape, so I assumed it was just birds flying relatively close. But upon learning, I was actually looking at a single object, No fucking way this didn't make any sound. But it just didn't. I can't find any non-tinfoil explanation for this. I don't know how to feel about witnessing something so, well, cliché, honestly. And I shit you not, earlier that day, I actually caught a X-Files marathon on TV and watched 2 episodes. And I don't understand how this shit is not on the news. Did nobody else see this thing? I don't live in a small place. This is a big city. The biggest we got here by far.
I know they say Serbs are superstitious people, but anyone who says vampires don't exist is terribly wrong. I'm a Greentext, my experience for you. Be me. I live in Montenegro, but I'm actually from Serbia. I go to my grandparents in Serbia every summer. In a village called Zarođa, hanging out with my friends. Decided to go to the famous Vampires Mill. Fuck that shit.jpg, they call me weak. Alrighty then, ride a bike there for about half an hour. Friends decide to fuck with me. Call me a coward if I don't go into the mill. I fucking do it. They block the door and start throwing rocks on the mill. Shat my pants. Barely succeeded in escaping. Fast forward to 10 days later, watching news. Famous Sava Savanovich's mill is collapsing and people around the village are getting sick. My cousin gets the disease, dies a month later. Fuck it all, never went there again, fuck my life, I am fucked. Here's the news article, it's even in English.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.